right, and welcome. I'm excited again to have our presenters today, and so I'm going to let them introduce themselves and do their presentations. But we've got Active Minds and Multiplying Good, and who, I don't know, you all have talked about how you want to present today. Who would like to start us off through introductions?
We planned things, but we didn't actually decide the order. So I'm thinking I'm just going to say my name and introduction, and then you all can do yours, and then we'll see what happens after that. We do have little presentations, though. that part we did prepare.
Okay.
And to give you all an overview is that both of our programs are separate. You can get excited about them separately, but they also can be combined and aligned together. So you can kind of keep that in mind. It's like you don't have to pick and choose, but you can if you need to. So my name is sbutzow. I'm the manager of programs and partnerships in Minnesota with Multiplying Good. I primarily work with our Students in Action program, which is what I'm here to chat about. And so I'll leave that later, but definitely connecting with all that you three just shared around. We're doing service, so AmeriCorps is right up our alley. Love the youth voice. I'm really excited to learn more about that from you, Lori. And storytelling is also a core part of our program. So I'm thinking about that with the journalism. So I'm excited for this group. But I will pass it over to dehaven and Tyrrell to go for it.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. I was actually, this is gonna sound bad. I kind of wish we were just like learning about y'all stuff because it sounds really amazing. And I'm like, I mean, yes, Active Minds, and like let's just anyway. So this could be another lunch and learn, and I will definitely attend. My name is dehaven. I use they, them pronouns. I do not live in Minnesota. Please don't hold that against me. I live in like the coastal area of Virginia, but I do have a sister that lives somewhere in Minnesota for buy-in. And I've absolutely fallen in love with the state, at least in the summer. I've yet to go in the winter, and I really don't want to. No offense. I'm deeply
I don't either.
y'all.
So
Deeply respect y'all for getting through that. Beautiful, beautiful state. And at Active Minds, I am the manager of our brand new middle school program, which is called We Are Active Minds Middle School. Myself and very much my right hand, Shayna, created our We Are program, and so we'll go into that in a moment.
Good afternoon, all. Very excited to get to spend some time with you. And as dehaven already shared, like you guys are doing awesome work. So just the opportunity to partner with you and be part of what you're already doing is exciting for us. I'm Tyrell Jeffries. I'm the director of K-12 initiatives at Active Minds. So I have the privilege of overseeing our programming in high school, middle school, and one day in the future elementary school programming. My background is in education. I live on the south side of Chicago and worked as a teacher and a principal for 10 years. And have now been with Active Minds for the last 3 years, able to work alongside dehaven. We're really excited to really speak with you all because Minnesota is one of the 3 states that we're piloting our middle school curriculum currently in. So really excited to allow you to learn a little bit more and hopefully connect with you further after this. And with that, I'm going to throw it back to you, dehaven, and you can jump in and tell them a little bit more about We Are.
No pressure.
None at all, dehaven. You got this.
We'll find out. Y'all let me know. We'll find out. And like it was mentioned earlier, I hate feeling like I'm just talking to myself in my home. I do that enough, so we don't need to add to that, right? So please like interrupt me with any questions, but I'm going to keep this short and sweet so that way we have plenty of time. And because my computer is awesome, it's not letting me share my screen. So here's what we're going to do. I'm gonna send y'all the slides. And it's really just like,
you want dehaven, you want me to share it? Because I can certainly.
Yeah, or Tyrell. I always forget about this for some reason on my work laptop. Zoom does not let me share screens. I have no clue why, and it won't let me override the system preferences. If anyone's a tech warrior, please send me some resources.
Okay, so Tyrell, do you want to try sharing it then, or I can either way? Let me know.
Yeah, no, I'll pull it up in just 1 second.
Takes a village, right? Even in adulting, best kept secret.
Thumbs up. You guys can see the screen.
We see it right now in the editing format, but we can definitely see it. But if you wanted to put present,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, here we go. We're good now, yeah.
Huzzah. So this is we are Active Minds Middle School. Super important to mention, this is an entirely free program, right? Like, y'all will never pay anything for this. So the way the program works is, if interested, you would just sign a partnership agreement and then go through a fairly short like 2-hour onboarding training with us, where we just kind of walk y'all through how to access everything, the flow of everything, and then you would implement it however you need to serve your youth. But all of that is free, along with ongoing coaching, resources, and things like that. So just wanted to highlight that out of the gate. So a little bit of background about Active Minds. We've been around for around 20 years. And this photo is Allison with her brother. When Allison and her brother were in undergrad in Pennsylvania, she unfortunately lost her brother by suicide due to having some really intense mental health issues and struggles. And at the time, there just weren't any conversations or support happening around mental health. So Allison started the first Active Minds chapter at her school, which was intended to start the conversation about mental health. And 20 years later, that conversation has just grown at an epic rate, and we're now continuing that work in middle school. So really the whole goal of We Are is to help middle schoolers get the skills, knowledge, and above all, empower them to be the agents of change that they want to see around mental health in their school communities or greater community. So kind of the nuts and bolts of the program. There's 2 parts. The one part that is like everyone will do is the curriculum. The club is like a fun added bonus. So with the curriculum, it's divided into 2 sections. We have self and community. Total is 16 mental health lessons. Each one builds on the next, all developmentally appropriate and very much embracing the age of middle schoolers, with lots of weird games, videos, very much trying to keep them moving and engaged. So this is far from, we're just going to sit in a circle and chat, which is like lovely. And I'm all about like, let's, I don't know, build obstacle courses and talk about boundaries. So lots of that throughout the whole curriculum. We also have 4 lessons for pre and post tests, and that's just to make sure that we are on point and the youth are getting what they need. When it comes to facilitating each lesson, we encourage 1 to 4 youth leaders, and that's youth who are game to help facilitate each lesson and just be that youth leader voice for their peers, and also help them have the conversation, find support, do whatever they need. And then we encourage 1 to 2 adult facilitators to help support the youth. But every lesson is co-facilitated between an adult leader and a youth leader. Everything makes sense so far? We feeling good? Pluck it along?
A quick question, and you can
Yeah,
certainly
please.
should wait. So, so this is middle school, and you had mentioned that there's high school as well. So you all are piloting the middle school, but is there like a similar supports for high school aged young people?
Yeah, so we do have a high school curriculum. It's a collection of discussion guides that's designed to be facilitated by youth for youth. Absolutely can have an adult in the space, right? But very much really centering their voice. And with those discussion guides, they aren't in order. So youth can really pull around like what topics they really feel they need to chat about. But that is also free, and there's no training required for that. You can just go to the Active Minds website, say you're interested, and then someone from the K-12 team will follow up with a link that I believe will just give you the entire curriculum, and you can just dive into it.
And so what other questions? So I know that developmentally, middle school and high school aren't the same, and yet there's kind of that like
Overlap.
Yeah. And so if someone did work with middle school and high school, or even just high school, and they looked at this curriculum and thought, actually, this seems to fit with my young people, can they apply it to older youth as well?
I'm going to hand that to Tyrrell, actually.
I think there's a lot of flexibility within our curriculum. I would say, as we're piloting right now, we are targeting middle schools. based off of our grant and the work that we're funded for. But I think if there was a situation in which a high school wanted to use this material for their students, it absolutely could be adapted for that setting.
Okay, so and I wasn't trying to make it more complicated, just thinking of the questions folks may have. So, so it sounds like really for the pilot purpose, if people are interested and want to partner on it, ideally this is for middle school. But if you have high schoolers, they should connect with those other resources. And again, most of our programs are community-based. So if they are a middle school program that maybe has some high schoolers, this might still work and they should talk to you about that.
Absolutely.
Got it. Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Wonderings? We're chilling. All makes sense. Okay, cool. We can keep plugging along. Tyrrell, anything you'd like to add?
No, the only thing that I was going to add is when we think about the club, really what we are hoping to do with the curriculum is like equip students to like own this conversation in the most healthiest way possible. There's so many resources that are at their fingertips. And as a former educator, I always found it that like, even when kids did want to speak up, they didn't have the language or the knowledge to articulate what they were going through. And so I think part of the club is our hope is like the curriculum is not one and done. We want to create a new culture within schools and within communities and within, after school programs that like talking about mental health becomes our new normal. And we just continue that conversation in the club setting, and that evolves to so many different things. And there's also another way to just stay plugged in with Active Minds. We have so many opportunities, and we're always going back to the drawing board to figure out how can we support our most marginalized communities. And so the club just allows you to stay up to date with everything that's Active Minds, and then it allows you to continue to work in high school. It allows you to continue to work on the collegiate level. And
so just again, to make sure, thinking about the word club is very, I think about like schools and they have the after school clubs, but for our out of school time programs, they can think of the word club, but it could be their like Thursday topic components or themes or things like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, actually, I think it was mentioned like at the YMCA, like having different middle school groups and LGBTQ groups. So really, I'll go into this in a minute with implementation, but my background is working almost exclusively with LGBTQ plus youth, right? So we were trying to think of how to create a culturally responsive and community specific curriculum without having to write 90 different curriculums, right? So really it's in that implementation process of the conversation, and what comes up will be very, very different depending on the youth that you have. And if you have a community identity specific group, they can go into, like, for example, if you had a group of young Black girls, right? It's like, I'm talking about the issues and oppression I have around my hair and my mental health and how that causes me a lot of anxiety. Or for trans youth, like going shopping with my mom at Target, that gives me a lot of it. Like it's going to be culturally specific and responsive, just depending on how you implement it. So also wanted to highlight that. And using that club model is very much a way to do that. So if you have like an LGBTQ plus group, a young Black men group, like whatever it is, you can just add it in there and help them have that conversation. Cool. So I just wanted to highlight a couple of the topics. So like I said, the curriculum is divided into two sections, self and community. And that's really trying to help them poke at these kind of really big developmental questions of who am I and how do I relate to others? So everything is kind of building on that. So the very first lesson is called Going Live. And it's really diving into different mental health literacy terms, different terms that will appear throughout the curriculum, but we're doing that playing trashketball. So weird things like that. But it's just trying to prime them. And then we go into recognizing emotions, which is like, what am I feeling? The thoughts that I'm having. The first section ends with a really, really fun game around decision making and understanding the consequences of those decisions. So hopefully we can plant those seeds of understanding that all of our actions have a ripple effect. I'm sorry, all my cat's climbing up the window. Then when we slide into the community section, the very first lesson is called DM Me. That's exploring healthy communication. We have a lesson called Vibe Check, which is exploring healthy and unhealthier relationship dynamics. We go into one lesson that's very, very mental health literacy focused, exploring the signs of a mental health crisis. How do I take care of my friends? There's an activity called the solar system, which is helping youth understand the layers of support that exist around them. And so that way they can create essentially like a plan for if they're in crisis, a friend is in crisis, like what are the circles of your solar system that you can tag and ask for help, while also helping them explore how do you ask for help? Like what is that language? What do you feel comfortable with? And then really the community lesson, the last, I would say 3 to 4 really end with a call to advocacy and understanding your leadership, your strengths, and how there's so many different personalities, strengths that we all have, and how can we use that to help lead others, inspire folks, and create cool change. Just like trying to unglue them from the paralysis of really intense big emotions that, I don't know about y'all, I'm experiencing as an adult. So trying to just help 12-year-olds navigate those big feelings.
I just wanted to say how, I had glanced at one of the example activities, and this just really aligns with a lot of what we've been talking about in our network around social emotional learning, and how as youth workers, we're not therapists, but how do you create a space to normalize the conversation and have that space? And so I think having these resources for youth workers to do great youth work, to like have some activities that help to build in the language. And again, I'm a huge fan of Circle, but sometimes that feels a little bit intimidating. And so being able to do it in fun and engaging ways, I think, is having the tools to do that's really helpful.
Yep. Yeah. No, definitely trying to make some really complex things super simple and approachable. And also, should have repeated this, you don't need to be a clinician to implement this, because this is not supposed to be therapy. This is just conversation starters and trying to get them thinking about these things. We do highly recommend having a clinician, having some sort of mental health professional that you can tag in case youth need that support, but trying to eliminate barriers to have these conversations. So thank you for saying.
Just to that point too, I'll mention for our folks, especially in St. Paul, that we do have mental health providers that not everyone's always aware of, and so thinking about and reaching out to anyone in our network to say, who are the folks that we can refer folks to if it gets to that point where those issues come up, where we want to support young people. And you talked about the solar system and the internal connections, but outside of those as well.
Yeah, thank you. And then lastly, these are just some of the different ways to implement it. So as Tyrrell pointed out, you can start an Active Minds club, facilitate the curriculum in that club. And then once the curriculum is completed, you just continue on your journey and really shift into more of that advocacy lens. Or you can implement the curriculum in a club or group that already exists. That can be a student-led club like a GSA, a Black Student Union, or even like a sports team, right? So maybe it's the off season, or I'm noticing my basketball players are really struggling with anxiety. Maybe we implement this to help them navigate those feelings. You can also do it in a classroom. So for example, we have a PE teacher who's doing it on like one class a week. They're just swapping out their usual curriculum with a We Are lesson and just flowing with that. Or it can be an after-school activator in any sort of after-school program, whether that's at a magical YMCA or at a middle school or another nonprofit space. So those are kind of the main paths that we're seeing it being implemented. And if you have any questions, comments, concerns, please reach out. We also have 2 lessons that we can share with folks along with what we call like a roadmap. And that just kind of outlines the process to bring We Are to your community. Tyrrell, anything you'd like to add?
No, you did a fantastic job, dehaven. I think again, our emails are available. So any particular questions that you have, if you want to move forward with this, please feel free to share this with any other partners that you have. We're trying to spread this curriculum across Minnesota as much as we can throughout this academic school year.
Great, thank you so much.
Yeah, appreciate y'all. Thank you.
So we'll toss it over to Sarah now.
Okay, my turn. Let me see if I can do screen sharing. All right. Let's see, can we see that okay? I know it's not in presentation mode yet. Let's see.
Yep.
We're good?
There we go.
Okay,
Yep.
amazing. And I also had this thought while you were talking. I feel like every time I learn more about Active Minds, I'm even more excited, but I will just share for everyone who's here that we connected because they Active Minds presented at one of our summer events, and because we're similar in that we're a national organization with a local presence in Minnesota, we've just found some alignment, and that's how we ended up here. So we'll talk more about some ideas for if you're interested in both, but just to give some context of how this came to be. So yes, so we are Multiplying Good, and I am specifically going to talk about our Students in Action program, which is our youth specific program. If I can, let's see, there we go. And so our goal with Students in Action is to cultivate leadership through service. We have 3 pillars: service, leadership, and recognition. And it's primarily focused for high school and middle school age youth that can be in schools, or it can be in out of school time programs as well. So if I use the word school, it's just a blanket vocabulary word for anywhere where our students are coming, or our youth, same with that, our youth are coming together. And we use project-based service learning as the vehicle through which students are impacting their communities. They're gaining a lot of different skills and a sense of their own self-efficacy and capability and power in the world. So what it is exactly, similar layout to Active Minds. We are super flexible in how we can be. So it's very student-led, but it can be in a class, it can be a club. We are in schools, we're in community-based organizations. Sometimes we're part of like an AVID class or a civics class or advocacy class. Sometimes we're an after-school club. Sometimes we're like the secondary, like we're a secondary support to a club that has a different purpose. Like we work with some student councils, or we work with Leo clubs, which are like the youth side of Lions clubs. One team in Delaware, their whole service project is actually just to get other students to do their own service projects. So it's like a meta service project of like more and more youth involved in service is how they do service. We're in 11 chapters, but I'm here to talk about our Minnesota one. I'm based in Minneapolis, but just for some context that we're in other parts of the country as well. So if you have contacts in other regions, we're always looking to grow. Each of our teams has a faculty advisor or another caring adult that come from that school or that out of school time organization that helps kind of bring the students together. And the amount of youth leadership kind of varies depending on where our youth are at. So some really need an adult to be kind of setting them up to take ownership, and the adult is just in the room and signs the participation agreement and is just there. And the youth are completely running the show. So it really varies depending on where our teams are at. It's open to all students. There's no minimum GPA. There's no service hours requirement. It's really, really very flexible. And we find that it's often a good fit for those who maybe haven't found their spot yet. They're looking for community. They're looking for some purpose. There's no, like, one of the first things we do is just talk about what is a need that you see. It could be one you're experiencing. It could be one that you see in your school. It could be one you see in your community. But that's really all you need to be there. And for those who struggle to identify a need, we can back up a little bit and talk about what should our communities have to feel healthy and safe. Like, what do we want to see around us? And then see, okay, what's missing? So we're there to support the process. You're getting to come in exactly as you are. And on average, our teams are about 15 students, just to give an idea, but we have teams that have 3 and we have teams that have 70. So really broad. And big thing to note that it is completely free. It is free to our schools and organizations and our students. There are a few areas. So our students sometimes are wanting to do a project that has some funds attached. And so we do work to connect them to grants they can apply to help them fundraise, things like that. Sometimes that's an area that's a challenge that we work to support them on. And then our other one is that we have conferences that I'll talk about, and sometimes just getting the transportation costs. But if that's a barrier, again, we're working our best to have funds to cover that completely. So it shouldn't be a challenge. I just like to say that so no one feels surprised when we're like, it's free, and then we have to pay for a bus, but we will help. We will get you there. we focus a lot on storytelling and kind of both the story that our students take away, but also like what is meaningful to them. We're nonpartisan. We're not coming in and telling them any particular issue they should focus on. We really want to help them to identify a need that resonates with them and their community. And so it really varies. We just are going to walk them through this process to help figure out what that is. In Minnesota, definitely the last few years have focused, a lot of our teams have focused on racial justice and environmentalism and mental health. And I would say like relationship health and dating violence and things. But again, no theme coming from us. That's what's resonating with our students, and what they are organically bringing to us is this is the issue we want to address. So it's cool to see. And the heart of what we do is service learning. So the reason we do service, I mean, there's many reasons. Our whole organization is focused on service. So, but one of the main parts with youth is really that it's a really impactful and wonderful way for youth to learn core skills and a sense of their own self, while also being in relationship with their community. So they're getting to walk away with a sense of their own ability to make a difference, often more compassionate values and that sense of connection with their community around them. A lot of building respect and understanding across difference, working with people that are coming from different identities and backgrounds from them as them. Civic self-efficacy and civic obligation, getting more involved in a lot of different ways around them. And then just lots of skills, critical thinking, communication, working as a team, project management, all sorts of things that they're just having to practice in order to go through this process. And so if you're looking across the school year, though it can be a shorter time frame if a team needs it to be, or a longer time frame, but kind of our standard is across the academic school year. We support our teams in going through these 6 steps. So I like to start with this quote from the National Youth Leadership Council, especially this last part about addressing genuine community needs, because that's really where our 6 steps start. So I mentioned earlier, we're asking, like, what's a need that you see around you? And we're going deep. And part of that is to figure out where to start. But part of it is to make sure that the project that they design actually addresses a need and it isn't based on assumptions. So the need that we see might not be the true underlying need, and the solution that we first come up with might not actually address. And so really digging deep of like, who is impacted, who is already working on this issue, like what can we learn about this, like how does it impact us, really trying to have a robust understanding of this need before we start thinking of a solution. So I had a team last year, and the advisor loves to laugh about it because she was like, yeah, they just came, we're like, we're doing a book drive. And then she was like, who are the books for? And they were like, we don't know, we just want to do a book drive. And so she's like, all right, we got to reverse this. This is the opposite. And they did end up being able to do a book drive, but they had to go back and figure out a need first and see where that is. And so luckily some of their elementary schools actually did need books, and they were even able to take it further, where it was actually even bigger than that. They were able to foster relationships with elementary school students and read books with them and help some of their peers connect with the books that like were important to them when they were younger. And it was, anyways, because they went back to this Investigate, it got to be a more nuanced and in-depth project than just collecting books, which is lovely, but maybe wouldn't have been truly meeting a need. And so all of this is happening at the prepare, the execute stage, actually running it. Reflection, to me, is kind of on par in importance with Investigate, because that's where the learning happens. And ideally, reflection is something that's happening all throughout the process. Like we're doing something, we're thinking about how it went, but big picture reflection of like, what was the impact on our community? What was the impact on ourselves? What did we learn? Maybe things went wrong. It doesn't have to have been like a picture perfect project, but maybe we learned something even bigger, or something came out of it from our community that we're going to do next year. And so that's where, just in terms of our learning process, that's kind of what sets us as like ahead of the Investigate and Reflect. Helped it become the service learning, and more so than just like a community service project, but that's where it becomes this fuller process. And then a core part of Multiplying Good is recognition and celebrating service at all levels. And so helping our students to practice telling their story, using that to celebrate themselves, but also to inspire other youth to get involved in their own issues or in the same one and join their project. That's how we spread, and that's how we get more others involved in doing good. And Again, very flexible program. If youth are interested in doing service or they're already doing service, we can work with you. But typically, if they're going to do the whole shebang, these are the three main settings where we're working with them. But just know it's kind of like a menu where if you're like, ooh, we're not quite ready for the whole thing right now, talk to me anyways. We can slide you into one of these that fits and work on getting there long-term into the full thing, but we don't have to start there. But if you're like, no, I'm diving in. These are our three main areas. So twice a year in February and November, we have student leadership conferences where all of our Minnesota students can come together, go through trainings to help deepen their service, but also learn a lot of these leadership skills that help them in executing their service project, but also in life. And we also invite local professionals to come and speak about how they use service in their own careers, whether that's like traditional volunteerism or more of like a servant leader or community focused work or things like that, and helping connect our students with these networks and these ideas of what's possible. Our in-school sessions, so that is if we're part of a class, it's more regular. We do have a curriculum that we're currently piloting that's actually for a full classroom curriculum, so you could have something for the whole semester if you want. Typically, before this semester, that's like, this is new. It's more like a series of activities from like a weekly or a monthly thing, but so we kind of have the whole range. And so that could be if you're meeting once a week, we can do an activity once a month. And some of those resources are self-guided, so our students can run them, an advisor can run them, however you want to do it. And then I'm also a resource. I can help troubleshoot behind the scenes and can also come in and run these sessions about once a month. And obviously long-term, we'd love to have a lot of like our student leadership team running it, but just working that some of our teams aren't quite ready for that. So figuring out kind of where each individual group is. And then at the end of the year, all of our teams are invited to come to our celebration and our reflection. And if they choose to, they can also go through kind of a more in-depth reflection and presentation process. And then one team is actually chosen to represent us nationally. So they receive kind of like most outstanding for Minnesota recognition. And then they get flown to our national celebration of service, which last year was a youth focused event at Howard University in DC. And just a little brag that I always have to throw in is that our Minnesota team from Cooper then competed at the national level and received a bronze level, so third in the nation for their work of uplifting Black voices in their school and community. So we're very proud of them. Anyways, I'd share a video, but we don't have that. It hasn't been released yet. And then, so basically, if you're like, yes, this sounds cool, where do I start? I have my contact in a few slides, but just that our average team, let's see, I'm blocked. Let me move this. I think it's 10 to 20. Yeah, 10 to 20 students, meets once a week, maybe every 2 weeks, could be once a month, could be every day. I can't be there every day, but you all can meet every day and we can set you up with resources so we can figure that out. Every team is different. I've said this a few times, but figure out what works for you. If you have youth who are doing service or want to do service, we can help have supports for you. We can be a standalone club. We can be integrated into something else. Our goal is not to compete. So if you're like, we already have this service project, but we'd like to access you anyways, we can just be a behind the scenes like bonus that you all use our resources. You come to conferences. We think of you as a team, but you might be under a completely different umbrella name. We have no need to be the core part. We just want to bring more youth into service and support them in doing it and feeling good as they do it. And lastly, that for the advisors, for the caring adults, there's no need to know anything about service or be an expert, though you're also welcome if you are. That's where we are. We're here to support you. And finally, I have a little change of pace because this is our last week for nominations, so I just have to throw this out there. Which is if you're an adult watching this and you are like, this sounds super cool, I want to do it, then you should nominate yourself to be a change maker, which is our adult service project that's launching in Minnesota in January. And so all you need to do is email me your name and your email and your workplace, and I will add you to our list to be part of the selection process. But basically it is adults who will be part of a cohort from January to May. And you get to do a series of networking and fundraising and recognition events. You get to be very involved with students in action. You get to volunteer at our conference and learn about service learning with youth, and then get recognized at the end with a graduation ceremony and award for your participation as a change maker in your community. So I just have to throw that out there. You can ask questions. I'm mainly here to talk about youth, but if you have anyone that you would recommend that you think should be on there, send them my way. And here's my name and email. If you have any questions, concerns, comments, anything you're interested in just seeing if this could work for you, please let me know. I would love to chat. We can set up a time to meet. And you can also follow Multiplying Good on any of our socials if you are interested. I think that Instagram is the only Minnesota specific one. So the others you get to see are teams from all across the country. So that's fun. I think that's it for me.
Yeah, yeah, and just to reiterate, because I think, and I always come across the same thing too, because Sprockets, we serve so many different organizations, and so it's like this huge umbrella of things, and like, let's find where we can connect and what makes sense. And so that always feels a little bit squishy, but, you know, as Sarah mentioned, is that if you don't have a program and you're looking for one, they have enough resources to help you build it out. If you already have a program and that has some service components to it, and you feel like, yeah, we kind of understand it, but oh, I saw those 6 things and I would really love some resources on how to think about what my community needs, or just to be able to tap into some of those to like continue to support the work that you're doing already. Like, she really is willing to be flexible in all those ways. And so I think just keeping that in mind and what it could look like in your context, to reach out and have a conversation about that. So I just really appreciate both sets of folks being here, and I'm going to open it up for some questions.